Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Amite River Basin Drainage and Water Conservation District monthly meeting here Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at the wonderful building here in Ascension Parish Council. Thank you, President Quintmall, for allowing us and these wonderful accommodations. Can we get a roll call, Miss Tony?
Okay.
Oh.
Just have a seat.
Call the order and then play.
Okay. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And President Quintmall, can you lead us?
Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And Tony, can we get a roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Present.
Mr. Byrd? Mr. Clark?
Present.
Mr. Quintmall?
Here.
Mr. Delat? Mr. Dufran?
Here.
Ms. Felito?
Present.
Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Parker? Mr. Rayford?
Here.
We have Greg Grandy today.
Here.
Ed Knight?
Here.
Randy Clulott?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, if we have any public comments, please register with our Executive Secretary, Ms. Tony. And I would like for everyone to know that we are being live streamed, and you can see it on YouTube and also on the Amite River Basin website. That's www.amiteriverbasin.org/upcoming. All right, referring to our agenda, under number 5, we have approval of our minutes. Commissioners, if you had a chance to take a look at the minutes.
Motion.
I have a motion to approve and a second motion by Commissioner Quintmall and a second by Commissioner Harrell. All in favor? Okay. Any opposition? Okay. Hearing none, motion passes minutes pass as written. Okay, number 6 is approval of our financial statements. That's going to be ending December 31st, 2024. Commissioner Bailey, anything outstanding that we might need to know about?
Everything is in good shape.
Everything's in good shape. Commissioners, y'all had a chance to review your financial statements from last year, December? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey, second by Commissioner Quintmall. All in favor? Any opposition? Hearing none, minutes are approved. The financial statements are approved. Okay, report by ARBC President. My report is brief, but I would like to point out one thing that I brought today, kind of like a little show and tell. There was a time in the past where I went on a tour with the Army Corps of Engineers on their high water tour. That's where you get aboard the motor vessel, Mississippi. And you cruise down the Mississippi and you get to meet with all the top brass. Well, it was very informative, but I'm looking at just about everything, and I found a magazine. The particular magazine is called Our Mississippi, and it's published by the U.S. Corps. So as I look through the magazine, I see a particular section that become of interest, and if you can see it, it says sediment gets new life. So what does that mean? Basically, if you've dealt with any type of river projects or water projects that require dredging and such, one of the big sticklers is what are you going to do with all of that sediment? In the past, it's been just piled on the bank like a spoil bank, and the Corps doesn't allow that. So you have to figure out where you're going to put it. And a lot of times you're going to put it, if you truck it or barge it away, it's going to be very costly. And if you put it in wetlands, that's going to be costly because you're going to have to mitigate the impacts of filling in those wetlands with this sediment. However, according to this article put out by the Corps of Engineers, they're basically saying that there is a nationwide mandate increasing the way sediment dredge to help navigation is being used to help the ecosystem. So, something to consider as one of our projects in the lower Amite with Livingston Parish is dredging out or removing that sediment accumulation in the lower parts of that channel. So perhaps this sediment can be used beneficially to mimic Mother Nature, the land building processes. As we know, sea level's rising, land is sinking, and the water's getting higher, and it gets in these woods, these bottomland hardwood forests that are very productive as far as ecologically, and help with the storm surge. Perhaps this sediment could help rebuild that if it's sprayed out there gently and used beneficially. And according to the Corps, that's what they want us to do. So anyway, just thought I would share that. And moving on, I would like to recognize at our meeting Sheriff Wiley, and now he's now our former Sheriff Wiley, and now State Representative Wiley. Can you stand and say hello, Mr. Wiley? Yes, sir. Thank you for. Thank you for.
Do I get a per diem?
Just.
Thanks for the introduction, and my assistant, who is Joey Piku.
Yes.
Well, I'm right in the office everywhere she walks, okay, and comes into. I'm here just to be a real good partner there.
He's a part of legislation.
Thank you, Representative Wiley and Ms. Piku. All right. That concludes my statement, and moving along to our next item, it's going to be number 8, and it's our report by our new Executive Director, Mr. Paul Sawyer. Paul?
Cheers. Am I doing this right? Am I on?
You got it.
Okay, good. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to try to make this brief as possible. A few things. One is at your seats, you have what's a Region 9 Louisiana Watershed Initiative Region 9 overview of all of our projects. So, Amite River Basin Commission serving in its capacity as the steering committee for Region 9. These are for your reference. These projects are what have been approved and what are taking place, either approved directly by the steering committee or have taken place in the various rounds of Region 9. We can provide more details on these. This is just a long list of what's going on in its various stages. We can provide more information. We can have LWI come present on each one, and we could also have each of the applicants come in and present on each of their projects if that is something that the Commission is interested in doing. Largely speaking, though, we have a handful of LWI projects of transformational projects of regional concern. These are monitored by Amite River Basin Commission, but they are allocated individually, as you know, to the parishes Ascension, St. James, Livingston, and East Baton Rouge Parish on behalf of an intergovernmental agreement among Iberville, Ascension, and East Baton Rouge. We haven't been actively staffing those particular projects. We will, if this is something that the Commission and the applicants want to do. For example, I have been assisting East Baton Rouge Parish more or less as a go-between and spending a lot of time with Office of Community Development trying to just identify choke points and any areas that we can manage to help expedite project consideration and project delivery. Again, the applicants are handling these projects for the most part on their own, but to the extent that the commissioners would like our direct involvement to assist in those projects, we're standing by. One of those projects that aren't of regional transformational projects that are of regional concern, one of those is actually a Round 2 project that the Commission acted on at the last meeting. These are the 2 projects that had been previously approved last year for East Feliciana Parish. Those projects, commissioners will remember, were intended to clear and snag and improve flow in the upper Amite River. Those projects were later deemed to be ineligible. And so just to remind you, last commission meeting, the commission passed a resolution to reallocate those funds with a preference towards reallocating those towards lower Amite dredging. There is a process, so the applicant is entitled to those funds, but only if they can spend those funds. And so OCD has informed us that they're absolutely ready and willing to work with us to reallocate those funds. They do, however, want to discuss with the applicant and make sure that the applicant does not have any other projects and that the applicant is willing to allow those funds to be reallocated. On February 3rd, Commissioner Ed Parker and I met with the East Feliciana Police Jury, and they approved a motion to entertain a resolution that they will take up at their meeting next week, whereby they will support the ARBC position to reallocate those funds back to Region 9, which is you, for purposes for flood mitigation in the Amite River Basin, particularly with respect to dredging the lower Amite. That sounded fuzzy, intentionally that sounded fuzzy, so that we have flexibility to manage those dollars as we need to in the basin, with the priority being dredging the lower Amite. As I mentioned, East Feliciana Parish is expected to pass a resolution. OCD will close it out with East Feliciana Parish. The commissioners have committed to working with East Feliciana Parish to identify opportunities for flood mitigation going forward. So we will continue to meet with the parish to try to address any other potential projects that they have. But those are the high-level updates for the Louisiana Watershed Initiative and our Region 9 responsibilities. Also, with respect to capital outlay, as you know, last year the legislature approved capital outlay in the amount of $2 million for ecosystem restoration in the upper Amite. The commission has identified gravel pits, sand gravel pits for ecosystem restoration. Commissioner or President Clark has identified a working group in the region to identify options for us to take to the facility planning and control so that we can have a kickoff meeting as soon as possible so that we can commence with spending those dollars and putting ourselves in place to secure additional capital outlay funds in the next legislative session to continue that work. Commissioners, I've been in touch with you off and on in the last month about the master plan. I'll defer to Sam Crampton to elaborate more on the master plan. I will say that Dewberry is winding down, or at least trying to solidify the master plan. There's opportunities galore for your very considerable input on this master plan. This will be our marketing document, so to speak, going forward. And the commissioners of the Amite River Basin Commission know better than anybody in this area what the needs are, what the priorities are. To the extent that you have the ability to provide more input, it will be absolutely valued. In the meantime, I will continue to keep you apprised of the master planning process so that you are made aware of timelines and deadlines. And just a reminder, this master plan must be delivered to the legislature. The legislature convenes on April 14th. So we'll need to finish this by April 14th. In between now and then, we need to develop a rollout plan. So we will have to communicate this to the public, not just to win approval by the legislature, but to also communicate it to the public. In the last meeting, the commission had approved a resolution or approved a letter to the chairs of the House Committee on the House and Senate Committees on Transportation to ask for their forbearance. As you know, there is a requirement that the Amite River Basin Commission provide an annual plan. The tempo has been set to deliver an annual plan in January. Obviously, we were not capable of meeting that because there's another legislative mandate to produce a master plan, and that master plan has consumed all of our time and energy. And so we had asked the committees to grant us forbearance to allow us to punt the annual plan till next year and to allow the master plan to effectively serve as our annual plan. We have spoken to both committee chairs and they've agreed to allow that to happen. Commissioners, at your seats, you will find updates on the Comite River Diversion Canal project, as well as the East Baton Rouge Parish Flood Control Project. I won't get into details about that. Those are both long discussions, but just high-level reminder that Comite Diversion Canal is the largest regional project in the Amite River Basin. It's an approximately $1 billion Corps of Engineers project to divert water out of the system into the Mississippi River. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Flood Control Project is another Corps of Engineers project, $255 million, that is essentially designed to clean the plumbing of East Baton Rouge Parish to evacuate that water into the Amite River and Bayou Manchac. Much of the work of that project has been done, or at least the easiest parts of that project have been done, which is primarily clearing and snagging in the lower bayous of East Baton Rouge Parish. There's more work to be done for riprap and channelizing in the upper parts of the parish, but as is the case with the Comite River Diversion Canal and this project, they're years away, years away. Commissioners need to understand that, because as we are modeling, as we're doing our other transformational projects, we have two major projects that will ultimately impact everything that we do. And it's reasonable to assume that neither one of those projects will be fully completed by 2028. That's an estimate. It's an estimate that I'm making, but I think it's an educated guess. And track record, these projects were fully funded in 2018, and the track record would suggest that this is true. Just winding down real quick, commissioners. You may be aware, especially our parish presidents, you may be aware of FEMA funding opportunities, both through FMA, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, and BRIC, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program. These are sweet spot grant programs that we should be taking advantage of as a commission, as well as our individual parishes. The deadline for these grant programs is going to be in April. However, there's a highly likely possibility that those deadlines get moved. There were selection criteria in those grant programs that were embodied in a previous administration. They are not embodied in the current administration. And the current administration, presidential administration, has given indication of a strong tendency to rewrite the programs that are currently underway. So I can elaborate more on these programs. The deadline again is in April, but I highly expect that those deadlines are going to get moved, and the program criteria are going to be rewritten or modified. And then lastly, I'll just add as a preview for next, or two more quick items. Apologies. DOTD has produced a document in response to a legislative request, a legislative instrument, SCR 79. I won't get into too many details, and Commissioner Knight may want to elaborate on this more. The point is that DOTD, at the request of the legislature, has developed a product on an analysis on the upper Amite Basin. Largely retention, largely items that are already captured in our draft master plan. And so I think what's important, and then also our consultant is assisting in this effort as well. I think what's important about this is that you've got a major component of our master plan, and then you've got a legislative initiative, on the side that ultimately, if once our master plan is complete and we already have legislative momentum on a similar project, I think there's an opportunity for us to work with the legislature to accomplish some of the project initiatives in the upper Amite. And that's SCR 79. I will provide that to you later in an email, but I really just raise that for your reference. And then lastly, next month, we've invited City of Central Mayor Wade Evans to come describe to the commission some of his efforts for adjusting flood maps and reducing flood risk in a non-structural way. He is also doing construction, but what he's doing, I think, is illustrative on a much smaller scale, but highly effective. And so we've asked him to come present his story and describe, how he funded it, how he scoped it, and how he is implementing his efforts to reduce flood risk as well as to reduce flood premiums in the city of Central. And with that, that's the end of my report. I'm glad to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Paul? Paul, I have first of all, good job. I appreciate the update. I know all the commissioners do. Obviously, we're doing some really good work. It's just trying to put the puzzle together. Referring to the list of watershed initiative projects, Louisiana watershed initiative projects for Region 9, that list, that includes our regional projects and the individual parish projects together?
Not specifically.
It looks like it does.
If you refer to the bottom of the list, Region 9 allocation, $100 million.
Okay.
So those OCD has intentionally left that as a generic earmark, recognizing that we are allocating. They're giving us a lot more latitude. We, the commissioners, but certainly the individual parishes that are the applicants. If the commission would like us to spell that out, we can absolutely have them do that.
No,
I think they're deferring to our judgment and flexibility.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make it a point that, the individual parishes applied for projects in their parish, but the board as a whole with that 100 million selected projects that were going to be regional projects, large transformative projects. And that's a lot of money. Talking about like the projects that say East Feliciana, and you know the LWI had requirements for project selection, project ranking, project rating, so to speak, that the board had to go through several exercises and meet several deadlines and criteria and check all those boxes. And those projects were selected as written. And is, you know, the requirements for LWI, is it just kind of, at this point, you know, we just let the parish do a project and it doesn't matter what the board said, or we, the board? I'm just trying to understand. And I know you can't speak from OCD, but do you see what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Is that, you know, we had to work as a regional steering committee, not just a board of commissioners, to select certain projects and rank them and rate them. And according to the board, everybody voted on it. And so now it sounds like, I don't know, can we change that criteria, or did that mean anything?
Excuse me. So a couple of things. First of all, OCD right now is governed and motivated by two factors. One is the low to moderate income requirement, which doesn't apply to all of our projects, but it applies to many of them, particularly East Feliciana Parish. That is a governing factor that's going to dictate projects that go in and out of the project list. So in other words, these projects are approved, and in the case of, for example, the East Feliciana projects, the Upper Comite projects, ultimately it was decided, it was realized that a few criteria, with mostly the LMI criteria, caused the project to become infeasible and to cause the project to be disqualified. The other governing factor, and I think this is what we will discover going forward, is that OCD wants to have these projects done by 2030. So now they're motivated by spending the money, getting the projects completed, and however we can get them to that finish line, they will work with us to get to that finish line. One more point about LMI, low to moderate income. That is a HUD requirement. So that's a federal requirement that they have to deal with, and there's no getting around that. So to the extent that on those projects that are restricted by LMI, that we work with them on satisfying that requirement, they're going to give us latitude to figure out ways to spend that money. And then, of course, the other overarching motivation is they want to spend the money. They want to get these projects delivered. That does not mean that we as a steering committee can go through this list and start yanking projects. They've already been approved. They've already been vetted and gone through a rigorous process. However, in our capacity as a steering committee, we maintain contact with OCD on the status of these projects. And maybe there are other East Felicianas that are out there that are incapable of getting to the finish line. And so in our role as a steering committee, we are monitoring to make sure that we are delivering projects, that we are adhering to those criteria, but not leaving anything left undone, and satisfying the overarching criteria, which is get the money spent.
Good deal. Thank you, Paul, for that explanation and clarification. Any questions? Commissioner Dufresne.
So what would be the triggering mechanism to reallocate a project like that? When would that time, what would you be waiting for?
So in the example of East Feliciana Parish, OCD does their homework and their due diligence as well, and they determine that a project is infeasible or doesn't meet criteria. So they've hit a roadblock, and they communicate that with us, and we recognize that we have other opportunities in the basin to try to spend that money. So we work with them in a similar capacity as East Feliciana, with those projects that have already been allocated and they've already been approved. If they can't, if they're stuck, we can come in and help work with OCD to unstick them. With respect to the $100 million, OCD is deferring to us, or deferring to the parishes who are the individual applicants. So those are almost two separate worlds. The $100 million exists in a bucket that's much more flexible and much more at the parish's discretion. Working with OCD to identify any opportunities or any projects that just can't make it to the finish line, we will work with them to identify those, help go through their processes to unstick it, and then working as our, in the capacity of regional steering committee, to identify other opportunities for solutions, other Amite River Basin opportunities to help them spend the money by 2030. And they don't just want it spent, of course. They do want legitimate projects that are going to provide meaningful flood mitigation.
All right. I was just curious because I have a particular project that
I don't
could use
believe you.
this fund.
I don't believe you.
That was a good clarification and distinguishing between the round two funding and the $100 million that was allocated to the most impacted and distressed areas by OCD. The round two projects that's different than that had the LMI requirements, and it also had the environmental requirements where the H&H model and all of that would have to be ran before for the pre-applications to make sure that that was an eligible project. And if it didn't meet a certain number as far as showing benefits according to the model, then that project became ineligible. So it's a lot of boxes to check. It sounds like a lot of money, but you've got to jump through a bunch of hurdles. And I think we got a good team. And Paul, I appreciate you helping shepherd the commission along, and the parishes. Like you say, your parishes that may not have the resources, but they do have the needs to help them where they don't fall down.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Commissioner Knight?
Yeah, I wanted to just start off by saying thank you to the executive director, Mr. Sawyer, for bringing up SCR 79. It's an exceptionally important topic. I want to encourage you all to read it. Senator Valerie Hodges put that up and had the vision to look at the upper Amite for detention and all of it. She's had a couple of those things going out, and it's an important concept that she asked specifically in there, that the cooperation of all the entities involved in this, which you guys were great on. It really helped Dewberry to move that particular report forward. LWI also through all the modeling efforts, and of course we had plenty of data at DOTD. So all those efforts combined really put a report together in pretty short order, and it saved the state a lot of money. And I want to encourage you guys to look at it. It's important. I think it's part of the equation for moving forward and treating the Amite Basin as a system as a whole. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Knight. Any more comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
All right, referring back to our meeting agenda, we have a list for our guest speaker. Ms. Tony, do we have a guest speaker? Okay. Okay. All right. So under number 10, it'll be our report by our ARBC legal counsel, Mr. Larry Bankston. Larry?
Thank you, President Clark. Just a couple of things. The upcoming legislative session, as Paul indicated, is April the 14th. So if there is some desire to make some modifications to our existing legislation, we need to make that decision at the next meeting, no later than the next meeting. And I also want to thank Sheriff Wiley for his assistance. He helped us in the last session with some legislation and got it through. We appreciate your help. Also, be aware that the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, or the amendment with ARBC and CPRA, the intergovernmental agreement, I've been working with Mr. Marino on that, and the amendment has been prepared. And what this amendment does, it allows for the expenditure of funds of that grant that we received from CPRA, that we had a deadline that was coming up, and this amendment would move that deadline in which we have to spend that money to June 30th of 2026. So that way, the funds that are potentially left over from Dewberry, and that was for the development of the master plan. But the language within the legislation allows us to use any additional of those funds for potential looking at promulgation of procedures, recommendations. So those funds would be available for that particular use. So that's so the commission, if you have some issues, I've been working with Mr. Sawyer on looking at some possible language that could be considered for the next legislative session, and I'm sure there is some items that may be of interest to the board. So that's all I have. John.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, no questions. Okay, moving on. Number 11 is old business.
That's the item that I was speaking. It's out for signature with CPRA, and once we get that back, we can execute that amendment that would extend the deadline for the use of the funds.
So this amendment is just a time extension, not necessarily anything financial. We're good on the budget amount in the contract?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Second bullet under old business is status of previous requests to OCD/LWI to use the $27 million towards the $27 million from East Feliciana towards the Lower Amite sediment removal and channel restoration project. I think Paul has talked about that, and basically we've covered that, and it's kind of, Paul, can you you have anything more to say about that particular item?
No, nothing more than what I briefed you on just a minute ago.
Okay. Moving on. Any questions about that? Okay, moving on. Third bullet is ARBC contractor, the Water Institute of the Gulf report on Louisiana Watershed Initiative Region 9 coordinator updates / discussions, and the ARBC master plan. Garvin couldn't make it. Garvin Pittman is working for the Water Institute, and he has been hired to handle those tasks for us, to help us with the Watershed Initiative and the master plan, and he has provided handouts. So if you can refer to your handouts and go over that. If there was anything out of line or alarming or not on track, we would know about it, and I haven't heard anything, so that must be good news. Garvin's been doing a good job for us. Any questions about our coordination and master plan progress? All right, moving along to our next item under old business is report / presentation by Dewberry. Dewberry is our contractor who is handling the ARBC master plan, and Mr. Sam Campton.
All right, thank you. Right, so this briefing is going to be pretty brief today. So as you'll recall, we delivered the draft on December 31st. So we've received comments from many of you on the draft plan. So if any of you are still reviewing that, please send your comments as soon as you can, as we're just trying to wrap it up. So currently we're still just working through the edits and that, ensuring everything's very consistent, incorporating comments as they come in, as well as refining some of the content. So one of the key things here is project prioritization. I think we're going to be talking about that a little bit more next week, where we've been updating some of the simulations. One of the big challenges with the plan at the moment is the date's going to be April of this year, and things are moving fast. You guys are doing good things. I see some of you are adopting new ordinances and codes, and so we are updating the plan as we go to keep up to date with that, so that in April, when this is finalised, it's as current as we can be. Some of the projects are certainly evolving. One thing that's certainly clear, there's a lot more to the projects than just the engineering. Just meeting some of the requirements for funding is certainly a big challenge, and I know we're working with many of you here on the board to get the best options there to ensure funding, as well as projects that are meaningful and showing impact. So stuff like that's coming along very good and evolving as we go. So some things, we do have the information now from PLD regarding bioman check restoration and Wards Creek realignment. So we are currently incorporating that into the plan and summarising the results there. And the big thing we're working on is going to be this full master plan model. So we do plan to meet with some of you and just discuss some of these projects and refine that final plan that will show the end goal with all these projects implemented. So in terms of timeline, so I said, please continue to give us any comments you have. We are looking to get this all wrapped up. We're looking next week at running the final simulation so that we can see that end goal. We've assessed every project individually. Now we are running it as a whole system approach with multiple projects all together to see how in year 2050 the plan can help reduce flood risk. One thing that's very evident is it's not just the physical projects out there. There's a lot of non-structural things that can be done. We've certainly highlighted big concerns with some of the FEMA mapping being outdated within the basin, and there's some huge potential there to work with other agencies like FEMA and the state NFIP coordinator to try and get some of these maps updated, as well as utilising a lot of the data that's been developed for this plan for purposes like CRS. And so there's a lot of non-structural actions of the plan as well. So we plan to provide an updated draft next month. We are going to have an updated version, should be the end of this week, which I will share if anyone would like to look at that. And then the final draft will be the middle of next month, and we will need to request comments pretty quick, just given the timeline there. And the goal is to have that revised plan to you, the final plan, by April the 4th, so that you can approve it during the April meeting and deliver to the legislator at the start of the next session. With that, I'll open up to any questions any of you may have.
Any questions? Commissioner Kluwat.
Yes. On the update, you've got a bullet point on the Bayou Manchac restoration, Wards Creek realignment, that you've obtained the models from the PLD.
Yes.
So you've got all the information, all agreements in place, everything's good.
We have the model, and we are meeting with PLD tomorrow just to go through some more of the details, but we do have the model now, and we have rerun it ourselves, and we have the results for the 2 runs that were in that model.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any more questions? Any comments? Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Okay. Referring back to our meeting agenda under old business number 11, I think it's bullet 5. status of parish president board members projects through LWI. I don't know if anybody's ready to talk about this at this point, but we have, I think what they're referring to is the 4 large transformative projects that are taking place. One with Ascension Parish being the new river pump station with a canal to the to Iberville Parish, and then in St. James Parish, the West Shoreline Connector Levee. I think it's a pump station y'all putting in. Commissioner Dufresne, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I can talk a little bit, but I don't know if I can have Kevin. He's our lead engineer with Intracoastal. Might want to give a little better update with the pump station than I can. Or as far as how much more funding we're going to be looking for.
Yep.
Sir, can you identify yourself and?
Yeah, just, is that working? Okay. Kevin O'Gorman, Intracoastal Consultants, engineer, as President Dufresne mentioned, working on the West Shore Connector Levee Phase 2. We did submit the application in December for the $10 million that was voted on by the commission, and then we've submitted a permit for this project back in September that would cover the levee component, which we have another funding source involved, and the pump stations along that feature. We've addressed all the comments from OCD to date, and we're just kind of waiting on the next steps kickoff meeting.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate the update.
Yeah.
I don't know, Commissioner Rayford, did you want to talk about that intergovernmental agreement between Iberville, Ascension, and East Baton Rouge on Bayou Manchac?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll just say, number one, that I pulled up some maps of what we're going to look at trying to address as far as in reference to the, I'll call it the Manchac project in general, but we have met with Paul Sawyer also and asked about the actual agreement, CEA with the OCD, and that's being put together, some information. I've already actually had the council adopt the resolution and approve the resolution for this project that we have. But after looking at the minutes of some of the things that they're going to be requesting, I may have to go back to the council to get approval to do that because of the new administration change in regards to that. But I'm going to verify that sometime the rest of this week to look at that. Certainly from my perspective, I indicated to some of the board members, I know everybody wants it done fast. Nobody wants it done fast more than me, because I'm the one that has to hear about it also in our parish, just like we do for every other parish. But it's certainly going to be a process for us to go through. Just a selection of a consultant sometimes takes as much as a month and a half to take place. We have a selection board process that we have to follow when we hire engineers, and we're going to continue to follow that process as we do on every project. I've already had my team to go ahead and start developing, finalizing the scope, which I will also get back with Sam on to be sure that we're concurrent with what needs to be done at this point, so we can put out these specifications of what we're going to be looking for this project. But just to go through the selection process could take as much as 2 to 3 months time frame, getting it to the council, getting it approved. Then once you get it approved, you got to get contract signed. So, and I don't want to be the burden of bad news, but that's just the process that we have to follow through the parish. I mean, we could be almost 5 months before we can see anything getting started in regards to the project. Of course, sometimes that's almost like what happens in federal government issues, but I don't like to be measured by federal government. I like to try to exceed those limits and try to accomplish the goals and objectives. I know how important this project is for the region, but it's also very important for us in East Baton Rouge Parish. You'll look at that list too, also through the watershed initiatives. We have 7 projects that we're looking at, not only to address water flow coming downstream, but retaining water in a lot of these major channels that we're looking at that ultimately end up in Manchac. So that project is also going forward, which I think is going to be a plus for the community. But I will have a better update in regards to where we are. But at this point, we're going to move forward. It's exciting to know that we have the funds available to do it. I have chatted with 5 or 6 different engineers, and basically said we're going to submit. And I'm sure when we put out the scope of work, I'll probably have 15 to look at it for sure from this perspective. So that's where we stand at this point, Commission. And if I have any questions, I'll be glad to answer that.
Any questions? That's great news. This is a good project for the region. Forge Creek, get it flowing toward the Amite River.
Oh, by the way,
Go
I
ahead.
do have a copy of the model for you, for Everett Parish and also Ascension Parish of what's been run on there for the Man Shack and the Wards Creek.
Since we are partners, right, Clint?
Right, I think we all 3 are partners.
Okay. Our other project that we had is with Livingston Parish on the lower Amite River, talking about the sediment removal. Obviously, all the water that's coming down, if it can't get out, it is spreads out wider and rises up higher and takes longer to get out. And so looking at Livingston has recognized that, the board's recognized it, and looking at removing that plug down there. And by doing that, it's going to help a lot of other projects that we're trying to implement further upstream. Commissioner Delott, President Delott, Livingston Parish is not here, but Commissioner Harrell, I don't know, could you speak and provide an update on that particular project and on President Delott's behalf?
Yes, sir. Working with Parish President, Livingston Parish, constituents on issues. We are trying to move forward with the sediment removal. The funding that's hinged on the East Feliciana project is going to be a hindrance or help us, to get everything done. We're trying to remove sediment from north of where Man Shack hits Amite River to the lake or to the 6,000, 7,000 feet before the lake that we've already done. So we're waiting on the final approval for the funding that East Feliciana was going to use, and then we're trying to move another batch into it so we can do the complete waterway.
Okay, thanks. So this project initially started out, I think they were looking at dredging below Carthage Bluff to the lake with a limited amount of money, and is that correct?
With sediment removal, yes, sir.
For sediment removal, and if that gets you a little ways, but that channel, that whole stretch, obviously from Bayou Man Shack below I-10 or I-12, the Amite River it just changes its nature. It's filled in. It's very shallow. So the more that we can do and reach up into the Comite River, the better off we'll be for that whole system and the projects that we're going to be doing locally to improve drainage.
Mr. President, just so we all on the same page, Livingston Parish over the last few years has agreed to accept water from other parishes, mainly East Baton Rouge, with the hopes of removing sediment on the Amite River. If that project does not finish up and get funded, basically north of Man Shack, almost to the interstate south, then Livingston Parish is going to have no recourse other than stop some work in East Baton Rouge and other parishes.
It's a dynamic system. As big as it is within certain geographic boundaries that extend all the way to Mississippi. But it being a dynamic system, it's all connected. So what you do in one part affects what happens in another part. And the nature of this board, we all sitting together are working together, and we're considerate of that. And so some of these projects might have to play out before the other ones, a sequence, in order for there's no downstream impacts on others.
We're all Amite River Basin. and we have to work it in a certain order to make everyone benefit. Thank you.
Any questions? Anybody have any comments on these particular project updates by the parishes? All right, moving on, referring back to our agenda, our last bullet under old business is Comite River Diversion Project. I think Paul gave an update on that. Did you want to add to that, Paul? And a packet that we have.
15 seconds. 15 seconds in an hour. Okay. Just real briefly on the Comite River Diversion Canal, just reminding you that this is the largest regional flood control project in the Amite River Basin right now. And as you know, it's a 12-mile long canal connecting the Comite River to the Mississippi River, releasing about 30,000 square feet of, or cubic feet of water per second, emulating the velocity of the Arkansas River. The project, if you took a 50,000-foot view, the project looks nearly complete. There are stretches of the channel that are absolutely dug and completed. The excavation's done. However, the project inexplicably has intersected with a 52-inch interstate gas pipeline, high-pressure interstate gas pipeline that's been there since 1959. And the Corps of Engineers in the state of Louisiana can't just go in and tell an interstate pipeline that they have to move, because an interstate pipeline is governed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So they have to answer to a different regulator. And it has taken years for the state of Louisiana and the Corps of Engineers to negotiate with this interstate gas company to relocate their gas pipeline. We've achieved some success in that regard, and it looks like the project will commence. Relocations will continue, and the project will commence. However, the bookends of this project are still problematic. One is the Comite River diversion control structure. So the structure that's going to take in the water, that still is finalizing design. There have been some engineering problems with that structure. Until that structure is designed and completed, it takes more than a year, probably 2 years, for that thing to be constructed. So until that problem, that design problem is situated, they can't even begin construction. On the riverside, where the water, the outfall of the water, the Corps has done a scour analysis, and they've determined that there is new risk introduced in their outfall, exacerbated by the fact that there is another recurrence of that pipeline. And so the Corps and the state are back at the table negotiating with the pipeline on possibly relocating. The Corps is also trying to figure out which way they're going to direct this water once it leaves the canal. They're designing guide levees, they're designing outflow, they're looking at scour analysis that could compromise this pipeline. We don't think that this is going to be as problematic as the other incidences of crossing this pipeline, but it gives you an idea of why the Comite Diversion Canal is in the state that it's in. The project is largely done, except for these crucial areas where you're just not going to be able to introduce water into the canal, and you're not going to be able to get it out of the canal until those two problems are fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that update. That was some good information. Hadn't quite heard it said like that. A 52-inch pipeline is in the way. Interstate. But the Corps and the DOT is working on it. And I know our Senator Valerie Hodgers with the Amite River and Comite River Diversion Canal Task Force is not letting up on it. She's full throttle. All right. Any questions about that? All right. Referring back to our agenda, under new business, we'd like to proclaim March 2025 as Flood Awareness Month. Anybody get a motion to entertain declaring March as Flood Awareness Month? Motion by Commissioner Dufresne, seconded by Commissioner Harrell. All in favor? No opposition? Okay, motion passes. This March will be Flood Awareness Month. And next item is number 13, our public comments. Public comments, anybody register with public comments? Any board member comments? All right. Hearing no public comments, I'll take a Commissioner Kluwat, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I
No.
didn't know if, when I pressed it, whether you saw it or something. I don't know. But anyway, I want to thank the board and Executive Director Sawyer, and going back to the Comite River Diversion Project, my God, some of us have lived our adult lifetime on that, trying to see that it go to fruition, and our state legislators, Representative Wiley, everybody, and all the local folks. The news, I saw a news flash last night based on the ability to lower flood insurance rates based on projects. And the Comite River Diversion Project, based on 50%, was part of that. And I didn't know whether, this has been a constant fight for decades, and I've been involved in a lot of stuff for a long time, especially locally. And our lower parishes that have done some really amazing projects have had to continue to fight to get FEMA to recognize the millions and millions of dollars that the local people have put in of their tax dollars. I know Ascension has, and a lot of other parishes y'all have. And, I don't know what to do with it, but I appreciate the fight and throwing the banner up. Because that's what we do. We're representing people. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kluwat. Any other comments? Hearing no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Quintmall, second by Commissioner Bailey. Thank you.